Imagine you check your phone right now, like you just open your banking app, and sitting right there in your checking account is a sudden, totally unexplainable deposit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we were talking the equivalent of 100 million RMB, just sitting there.
I mean, your brain just defaults instantly to this modern binary of wealth, right? On one side, you have your current life filled with, all its mundane daily stresses. And on the other side, just total unadulterated financial freedom.
Exactly. Like you quit your job, you buy that property you've always wanted, you fix every lingering problem you've ever had with just brute force cash.
Right, because it's clean, it's simple, and it feels mathematically perfect. More money naturally equals fewer problems.
But then you look at what actually happens when sudden massive windfalls are injected into human ecosystems,
Yeah.
and that clean equation just breaks down completely.
It really does. It turns into this landscape of paranoia, fractured communities, and, well, in the case we are diving into today, multiple dead bodies.
Yeah. It is dark. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are looking at what is essentially a real-world cosmic trap today.
Yeah, the unintended consequences of sudden wealth are profoundly dark when you examine the actual mechanics of what happens to the social fabric.
Totally. And that is the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring the incredibly razor-thin line between a random tragic coincidence and what some might argue is absolute cosmic inevitability.
It's like a fascinating topic.
We're unpacking this really dense, fascinating essay from 2012 by an author named Feng. It's titled Revelations from the Inevitability Within Apparent Coincidences.
And the author takes a very grounded, heavily documented tragedy and uses it as the foundation to build this sweeping framework. I mean, he's exploring fate, the energetic ledger of the universe, and these invisible programs that might be running our reality entirely behind the scenes.
Right, because the source text starts out reading like a cold true crime autopsy. Right.
Yeah.
But then it ends in a completely unexpected metaphysical space. So let's just set the stage with the facts.
Let's do it.
We have a 77-year-old Canadian man named Lucien North, and he wins this astronomical lottery jackpot. We are talking about the equivalent of 100 million RMB, which was about 3 years before this essay was written.
Right. And he essentially attempts to do what most people imagine they would do in that exact scenario. He begins distributing the wealth.
Which sounds nice in theory.
Right, but he doesn't just stop at his immediate family. Large sums are given to his son Daniel, but then he disperses the money outward to his neighbors and his extended relatives.
Which instantly weaponizes his existing relationships. Like, Lucian's wife is absolutely livid about how the money is being distributed outside the immediate family unit.
Oh, yeah.
The disagreements just escalate into constant bitter fighting. The emotional toll is immediate and honestly corrosive. The marriage completely collapses and ends in divorce.
So the primary foundation of his personal life fractures almost immediately. But the wealth begins to act like an industrial solvent on his broader community ties as well. We see this acutely with his son Daniel. Daniel becomes increasingly paranoid and enraged, convinced that the neighbors have somehow swindled 5 million Canadian dollars out of his elderly father.
Wait, so the neighbors who got the money?
Yeah, Daniel thinks they basically conned Lucian out of it.
Wow. So Daniel decides to take matters into his own hands and launches these massive lawsuits. He sues 4 of the neighbors, plus one of his mother's, like Lucian's ex-wife's relatives.
It's just a mess.
A total mess. He essentially drags his frail 77-year-old father into a bitter, multi-front legal war over, illegal encroachment on the lottery winnings.
Which completely shifts how Lucian is viewed by everyone around him.
Exactly. Lucian goes from being a regular, presumably liked guy in the neighborhood to a lightning rod for community resentment. He is utterly exhausted by court battles, alienated from his family, and just hated by the people living next door.
And Feng methodically lays out these specific facts to demonstrate a structural collapse. Like, the material wealth eroded the emotional and social load-bearing walls of this family long before any physical tragedies occurred.
Right.
The internal integrity of their world was already destroyed.
Which brings us to the physical tragedies. Because they are relentless. It's September 1st. Daniel and his wife Teresa throw a large party for their friends. They are celebrating the completion of a brand new luxury swimming pool at their home.
A direct physical manifestation of the new lottery wealth, by the way.
Exactly. And sometime during or immediately after the party, Teresa falls into the pool.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, the exact mechanics of how or why she fell remain entirely unknown, but she drowns. Her body isn't discovered until the next morning, just resting at the bottom of her new luxury pool.
It's a horrifying escalation, and yet the cascade of tragedy hasn't finished its sequence.
Not even close. Just over 2 weeks later, September 18th, Daniel's resting at his home in a Montreal suburb in the evening. Out of nowhere, his pet dog bolts out of the yard.
Right.
Daniel naturally jumps up and runs out to chase the dog. And the exact millisecond he steps out of his yard and into the street, a Jeep happens to be speeding by. Daniel is hit and dies instantly.
I mean, the human instinct here is to just stare at the sheer brutal improbability of it all. You isolate the drowning, you isolate the dog running, you isolate the speeding Jeep, and it looks like a series of terrible random chance events.
Right, just a string of awful luck. But Su Hemfeng pivots the lens entirely away from chance. He isolates those exact 3 moments. Teresa's unknown plunge, the dog's sudden sprint, the precise velocity and timing of the Jeep arriving at that specific geographic coordinate.
Yeah, he zeroes right in on those.
And he argues that if you step back to view the, quote, overall trend, a different picture emerges. He proposes this wasn't an accident at all. It was absolute inevitability.
Yes.
He poses a really arresting question in the text. He asks, did the dog decide to run out on its own?
And viewing this purely through the lens of Western determinism misses the core mechanic Shuifeng is describing. He is operating within the framework of what he calls the Tao's program.
Okay, the Tao's program.
Right. In this model, human and animal actions are just nodes in a massive interconnected network. They aren't entirely governed by isolated, localized consciousness.
Okay, I have to push back for you, the listener, right here. Because taking a horrifying family tragedy and stripping away all random chance or human free will, it feels incredibly reductive.
I can see why you'd say that.
I mean, it sounds like we are blaming a cosmic computer program for what might just be a lack of a pool fence or a reckless driver in a Jeep. It feels like taking the responsibility entirely off the physical world.
Well, it's important to understand how the author is building this framework. He isn't excusing the driver of the Jeep or dismissing the necessity of safety protocols.
Right.
He is trying to describe a macro-level system of cause and effect. Everything operates within the Tao, which functions essentially as a background operating system for reality.
So if we are living inside a cosmic operating system, it sounds like sudden wealth is treated as a severe glitch. Like the system is humming along, processing normal daily inputs, and suddenly a massive unearned influx of 100 million RMB is dropped into a single node.
Yeah.
The system doesn't know how to process that massive spike in data, so it just crashes.
Well, the system doesn't crash, it violently rebalances itself.
Oh.
The Tao, as an operating system, is built on absolute equilibrium. When the dog runs out and the Jeep arrives at that precise fraction of a second, Shuifeng sees the execution of a macro-level self-correction.
That is wild.
It's an invisible web operating far beyond our limited human perception. He is shifting the focus from the immediate physical cause, the vehicle, to the energetic root cause.
But the Jeep wasn't the problem.
Right. The tragedy wasn't the Jeep. The tragedy was the lottery ticket 3 years prior. The Jeep was just the final line of code executing the rebalance.
That is a terrifying premise. Because it means we aren't independent actors randomly bumping into each other. We are basically variables being rewritten by the system to maintain its own baseline stability.
Exactly.
But if that is the mechanism of reality, how are we supposed to navigate it? I mean, if gaining too much triggers a fatal system rebalance, Zhuifeng must offer a way to avoid the correction, right?
He does. He offers a highly specific set of revelations extracted from this tragedy, starting with the inflexible law of zero-sum energy.
Okay, zero-sum energy.
Within his framework, positive and negative energy in your life always sum to exactly zero. Gaining an enormous amount in one area instantly generates an energetic deficit in another.
It's almost like taking a fully inflated balloon, right, and suddenly squeezing one end with both hands.
Well, that's a good way to look at it.
That air, that internal energy, doesn't just magically disappear. It violently forces its way into the other side of the balloon until the rubber stretches beyond its capacity and pops. So the 100 million RMB was the squeeze.
That is a perfect analogy. And taking that balloon analogy further, Shuifeng relies heavily on wuxing, the 5 elements, to explain the resulting rupture.
Okay.
But instead of the usual cyclical balance of the 5 elements, he's essentially weaponizing them to explain how an extreme influx of water, in this case, massive unearned material wealth, inevitably drowns the fire of the family's social ties, marriage, and structural stability.
Wow.
The universe simply does not allow you to hoard positive fortune without aggressively balancing the scales.
Which brings us to his concept of the anti-material structure.
Yes, this is key.
He argues that instead of material wealth, we should focus all our energy on cultivating this anti-material structure.
Right.
But how does that actually protect you from the system?
Think of the anti-material structure as an energetic grounding wire. Shufeng is referring to your inner virtue, your spiritual development, your character.
Oh, I see.
By cultivating those intangible qualities, you provide that excess universal energy a safe place to disperse. Rather than letting the energy build up and short-circuit your physical reality, which manifests as the Jeep accident, the spiritual grounding wire diffuses the tension safely into the earth.
And the text becomes incredibly strict about the physical behaviors that trigger these fatal corrections. I mean, it isn't just a vague directive to be a good person.
Not at all.
It demands a complete withdrawal from the mechanics of sudden wealth entirely. No gambling, no buying lottery tickets, no participating in activities that generate exorbitant, rapid profits, no stock market trading.
Shuifeng is essentially demanding that you stop squeezing the balloon. Keep only what you earn through simple, honest labor.
He advises readers to give more, take less, which makes sense in a ledger system. Deliberately keeping your own ledger slightly weighted toward giving conceptually shields you from the cosmic audit. If you are constantly bleeding off a little bit of excess energy by giving more dedication and taking less enjoyment, you fly under the radar of the Tao's correction program. You escape the disaster because you never trigger the alarm.
It fundamentally attacks the core of modern ambition. It tells you to stop looking for the shortcut, the overnight promotion, the viral fame, or the sudden windfall.
Yeah.
Because every giant leap skips a necessary step in the cycle. And the energetic cost of skipping those steps is extracted from you in the form of disaster.
So we've built this entire logical, somewhat terrifying framework about energy, ledgers, and the Tao. And then Zhuifeng pulls the rug out from under the reader in a way that forces you to completely reevaluate the essay.
He really does. The text takes a very sharp, abrupt turn away from the external world of Canadian lotteries and car crashes, turning the philosophical lens directly onto the author himself.
Yeah, because throughout the essay, he's maintained that the dog, the Jeep, the drowning, they were all driven by an invisible program. But in the final section, he states that his own words, his role as a quote-unquote life tour guide, and the very guidance he is writing down in this essay are not controlled by his own consciousness either.
He claims he is being actively operated by the Tao.
And the rationale he provides for this is genuinely mind-blowing. He states explicitly that he does not actually exist.
Yeah, that part is wild.
He claims that he died previously in a car crash. The current him authoring this text is merely a medium, a vessel operating between God and the audience, manipulated entirely by the Tao's program.
If he truly believes no one has independent free will, then logically he cannot take credit for writing the essay. And whether you, as a listener, choose to interpret his death and resurrection as a literal supernatural claim or as a profound metaphor for ego death, the functional outcome is identical.
It is the ultimate embodiment of his own philosophy. He has achieved the perfect anti-material structure because there is literally no material self left to balance.
Exactly. I have no ego left to balance. I have no personal desires to trigger a karmic correction. He has become the water flowing exactly where the Taoist program directs it.
Wow.
To truly escape the devastating corrections of the system, you have to stop being an independent variable. You have to become part of the physics governing the system itself.
So we've essentially been reading a metaphysical autopsy of a fatal car crash, written by an entity who claims to be the vessel of someone who died in a fatal car crash.
It's very meta.
It completely closes the loop on his thesis of inevitability. So let's just take a breath and recap the incredibly dense territory we've just covered.
Good idea.
We began with the very grounded, devastating curse of Lucien North's 100 million RMB lottery windfall. We watched the sudden influx of unearned energy obliterate his marriage, fracture his family, and trigger a relentless sequence of fatal accidents.
And then we examined the architecture behind those coincidences, entertaining Shuifeng's framework that they were the mechanical execution of a cosmic program, a violent rebalancing of a severely disrupted ledger.
Right. Then we explored the mechanisms for surviving that system, like building an energetic grounding wire through your anti-material structure, avoiding the gravitational pull of sudden wealth entirely, and deliberately giving more than you take.
Yeah.
All of it culminating in the author's own surrender of existence to the Tao.
It challenges deeply entrenched assumptions about agency, ambition, and the true hidden cost of what we consider
It
success.
really does. Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder for you listening. If our reality genuinely operates as a self-balancing program of positive and negative energy, what does that say about our motives for doing good?
That is the big question.
Like, if you actively start trying to give more and take less,
Mhm.
but your sole motivation is to mathematically dodge a cosmic disaster, does that calculated defensive goodness defeat the whole purpose of spiritual growth? Or is that pragmatic survival mathematics exactly the kind of harmony the system demands of us?
It's something you really have to chew on.
Yeah, so next time you check your phone and imagine that massive deposit sitting in your bank account, ask yourself if you're ready for the universe to balance the ledger.